Hi, mystery writers. Welcome to Write a Killer Mystery, where we talk about making a good story great. And today I want to talk about listening to your muse or your muses. First, I want to thank my patrons on Patreon who support this series and my writing. And if you would like to become a patron, there's a link in the description below. Okay, so listening to your muse, you want to transform that inspiration into a writing strategy. So how do you capture those inspirations? We all like riding in the car or waking up in the middle of the night and that idea comes and we think we're going to remember it, and then by the time we get home from our car ride or the waking up the next morning, we remember we had a great idea, but we don't remember the idea much. And so I think all of us struggle with this unless we have some system in place to really capture and record those ideas so we can use them and integrate them into our work. Creating a system to capture those ideas really helps you expand and refine your novel and future novel ideas. Inspiration is often personified as a muse coming unbidden to give you a new idea, so you can think of your muse arriving and saying, idea, you know. And in Greek mythology, there were 9 muses, and I think all 9 muses come and visit us from one time or another. So I'll just quickly introduce you to the muses if you don't know who they are. They were Greek goddesses who ruled over the arts and sciences and offered inspiration in those subjects. So there you go, they offer inspiration. They were the daughters of Zeus, the lord of all the gods, and what's her name? Mnemosyne, who represented memory. So memory was important for the muses because in ancient times when there were no books, poets, writers of any kind had to carry their work in their memory. Just that's how old the idea of the muses are. But today we're kind of, in a minute, we're going to knock that aside and say that we don't have to just rely on our memory to capture those ideas. So let me go through the 9 muses. Calliope was the muse of epic poetry. Clio was the muse of history. Erato was the muse of love poetry. Euterpe was the muse of music. Melpomene was the muse of tragedy. Polyhymnia was the muse of sacred poetry. Terpsichore was the muse of dance. Thalia was the muse of comedy. Urania was the muse of astronomy. So, following the concept of the muses, any one of the muses can inspire details of your story. And inspiration sparks every detail of your story, adding conflict and specifics that ground the reader and connect them with your characters. So in the middle of the night, you have an idea for the twist that turns everything around at the midpoint. That's Calliope. Or you may search for the right wound for your protagonist and suddenly have an idea for their backstory that fits your character's personality. That's Clio. and a character will come to mind as a love interest for your protagonist, Erato. And you may use a sentence as a placeholder until you find the phrasing that flows with grace, and that's euterpe. And although a traditional mystery is a comedy, you may find tragic moments to build empathy in your story, and that's melpomene. And your secondary theme, after finding the truth, the main theme of any mystery story, can influence the entire tone of your story, and that's polyhymnia. And you may move around in your bedroom to choreograph the movements of a fight scene, and that's terpsichore. Create a climax that reveals the villain and fulfills the story engagingly as a gift of Thalia, the muse of comedy, because the end of comedy, think of it as comedy with a big C, is everything fits together. And your idea from where the story takes place in the world adds a sense of reality, all that setting detail and what surrounds your characters, and that comes from Urania. So if you want to assign your ideas to a specific muse, there you go. So the main thing for you as a writer is to create some kind of inspiration collection system. When ideas arrive, you need a collection system to put them to use in your story. Otherwise, if you had an idea in the middle of the night and the next morning you don't remember it, it's gone, all right? Without a system, you can end up with ideas that disappear even when they feel inspirational at the time. So one of the benefits of having this collection system is that if you collect that inspirational idea at the time when it happens, at the time when the muse strikes, when you're ready to work with that idea, that is when you can make the judgment decision of whether it is truly an inspirational idea and something you want to use in your story, or it's something that you want to save for another story, for instance. You can make that decision, but without a system for collecting those ideas first, whenever they arrive, you can't make that decision. So the system is an important ingredient in your craft as a writer. And what you use for your system depends on your personal preference. So I'll give you 3 of the most common ones. The first is traditional 3x5 cards. They're easy to carry. People put them in the pocket, in their shirt, or their bag, or their purse. And you can quickly write down that idea on your 3x5 card. And then one that many people use now in the 21st century with our mobile devices is voice notes. And writers use voice notes to capture an idea. When that muse strikes, they turn on their voice recorder and they just speak. And that idea is ready to be accessed at a later time. And it's usually on your mobile device, and because most people have their mobile device with them wherever they are, in the bed, in the kitchen, in a vehicle, on a walk, you don't even need a pen or pencil to write. You just record with your voice. So that's another option for creating the inspiration that comes from your muses. And another traditional one for writers is a notebook. And many writers, like me, have several notebooks. for capturing ideas. For example, one by the bed, one in a backpack or handbag, one at the desk, etc. One of the things I like about a notebook is because it's bound, it's unlikely for a smaller piece of paper, like a 3x5 card, it's unlikely to get lost. In other words, you'd have to lose the entire notebook before that captured idea is lost. Anyway, it doesn't matter what system you choose. The important thing is to actually have a system and to use that system. But there's one more step, and this is the part that I think is hardest for most of us as writers, and you need to train yourself. You need to train yourself to capture that whole idea. And I think this is actually easiest with the voice recording system. But that is, a muse can appear at unusual times, right? Like gardening or walking the dog or washing dishes. And the most famous and the most difficult to capture and remember is the one that strikes in the middle of the night. The idea comes full blown, and how it fits into your story and how it enriches your character and where it takes place. Unfortunately, unless you capture that basic thrust of the idea, it can disappear by morning. And that's why you want your system. But making a quick one-word note that makes perfect sense in the middle of the night may be meaningless in the light of day. And this is the part where you need to actually train yourself. All right. So one word like path or glove seems perfectly sensible, because you have in the middle of the night when you have that idea and the whole idea is there full blown, and you write down path and you go, I am going to remember that in the morning. And the morning comes and you look at your note, path, and you have no idea what that means. None. Path. It's meaningless. So that one word note just isn't enough. So what you want to do is train yourself, especially in the middle of the night. You want to train yourself to wake up enough, not to just reach over and write down path, but to wake up enough to write down the important elements of the idea. So instead of path, you want to write something quick but fuller. So Jim follows the path in the woods to the hidden cabin. Jesse hides the bodies there. Because if you just write down path and cabin, you may not remember why those two things are important. And I'll tell you, it's hard. It took me a long time to train myself, because you wake up in the middle of the night, you're tired, you're kind of half awake, and you think that writing down that little one or two word note is going to capture it all. And then unfortunately the next day it doesn't make sense. So it's just like anything that you practice. You have to practice capturing that idea with enough notes, whether it's voice notes or written notes, enough of the sense of the concept of the idea so that it will make sense when you're at your writing time and you want to incorporate that new idea. So practice extending your inspiration notes so the meaning will be clear later and your story will be rich with detail. All right, thank you. I hope that helps. I know all of us struggle with capturing those inspirations when they come outside of our writing space. Um, and if you're like me, you can sit at your desk and the inspiration doesn't come, but then it comes somewhere else. And you want to be able to bring those inspirations back to your writing desk so you can use them. I hope that helps. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you are about to begin a writing journey of writing a mystery, I'd love to see you inside Write a Killer Mystery. It's a course that takes you from your story idea through the entire process of writing a mystery novel. So link is in the description below, and I'd love to see you there. All right, if you enjoyed this, please subscribe, and don't forget to click that little notification bell so you'll know when the next episode of Write a Killer Mystery is here. All right, keep writing.